I think I figured it out. I think I have figured it out, queens. Hopefully I did, which is really, really awesome because it was going really, really amazing. So welcome back into the QIA room. We had a little technical difficulty, but that is okay. We live and we learn, and then we move past it. We are going to, so I'm guessing that nothing was heard even from the beginning, but so I'll have to go back and delete the other one later. But I want to thank you guys for joining me for my live players. I do appreciate it. I appreciate, you coming in here every single morning. Make sure that you press the heart over here, and then also over here, make sure you press the share to any page or any group that you're associated with. Let's make sure that we get it out. Yeah. Look, welcome, Queen. How are you doing? Yeah, a little technical difficulty, and let me tell you why. Because I've been doing my 1 minute daily deep breath, and I have to put it on camera and phone. So it was still on camera. So I'm just talking, and for whatever, it was still on phone. I'm sorry, or vice versa. Anyway, I realized I have to have it on phone in order to be able to get sound. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming in here. That was just practice. I was just rehearsing. And so that now I can bring it to you even better than I did before. That's all. It's all good. Know that I did pray, because like I told you, I can't do this within myself. So know that I did pray. And, I just want to take the time just to thank you guys so much for joining in. I hopefully, those that were on, will come back in if they didn't hear sound, because I saw, I had a few comments, but I did not even look at it for a little while. And I believe it was only Brandy that commented though. But thank you so much for letting me know, Queen Brandy. But as I was saying, what we're talking about today, because like I said, a lot of times, especially with motivation, we want to make sure that we're definitely getting an unadulterated type, right? So with that being said, we're going to go to Acts chapter 12 is where I first started. And in this is where King Herod was basically taking disciples and killing them. And first he started off by beheading John, and then finally had got a hold of Peter. And so he puts Peter in jail, chains on, he's all locked up, and puts a total of 16 guards around one man. I'm like, really, that's a little over. But anyway, he put 16 guards around one man. Now, while Peter was sleeping in the jail, he was locked up, had chains around his wrist. It says he was between two other guards. So he was laying down between two other guards, and they were guarding him, right? Well, in the middle of the night, an angel comes and hits him on the side and says, quickly, get up. Like he tells him, look, hurry up and get up, and he tells him, look, put on your cloak, wrap your cloak around you. Let's go. And at this time, Peter thinks he's dreaming, and he's like, I'm seeing this vision. Okay, God about to do something because I'm seeing this vision. And so he tells them, get up. Well, they go. It says the iron gate opens up by itself, and they go through it. And the angel brings Peter about a street long distance, and then disappears. Well, then Peter's like, I know, like, God is doing something amazing, that it wasn't a dream, that really this has happened to me. I know God is real. He had this, he just knew from that experience, because he knew it was nobody but God. And so then he goes up to the door. The church had been praying for Peter, and they had the door closed. They were praying for Peter. Well, Peter comes up and he's knocking. Well, a little servant girl comes up to the door, sees Peter outside. And when she sees Peter outside, she gets excited, right? She forgets to open the door to let Peter in. Now, I want you to think about Peter. Peter was probably already frantic, because the fact is he had just gotten out of jail. He was no longer captive. In his mind, you think, you know what? They're going to come looking for me once they realize I'm not there anymore. So he's knocking. And the door isn't open because the girl gets excited. She runs to tell everyone else, hey, Peter's at the door. You won't believe it. And they're like, girl, you lying. And she's like, no, I'm very, very serious. Peter's at the door. But it says in that, it says, but Peter kept knocking. And see, I want you to think about that. A lot of times when we're no longer captive, we're no longer bound anymore. And we're knocking at the door, and it's the right door that we're knocking at, right? We're knocking at this door. But because it doesn't open up as quick as we want it to, we would, in our minds, run to the next door because I need to get somebody to let me in so I can take cover because they might be after me. And a lot of times we will miss exactly what it is that God would have us to have behind that door. I want you to think about this. Behind that door, there was celebration, there was joy, there was peace because Peter had been released. Behind that door, everything Peter needed was behind that door. And if Peter would have said, you know what, they didn't open it up quick enough, let me move to the next door, he would have missed that opportunity. He would have missed that door opened and would not have had access to that room, what was in that room. And like I was saying with my brother last night, he had his book tour and it came to Lafayette. So he did it at the church last night. And when he was talking about that, he was talking about the people of Israel, how when God delivered them from Egypt, from being in bondage, he wanted to bring them to the promised land. He had prepared a place for them. But because of the murmuring and complaining, because of everyday life and this ain't going this way, this ain't going this way, they didn't get to enter into exactly what was meant for them. So we have to understand that unless we're in, not only like Bishop Demetrius said, not Demetrius Senegal is his name, but Bishop Demetrius Senegal, but not only what he said is, he said, you know what, there's a lot of times where we are supposed to enter into something. We're supposed to have access to this, but because of murmuring and complaining, we can actually miss what was meant for us. You know how people say what God has for me is for me? Very much it is for you, but you can miss it. You can miss the opportunity if you're not in the right place at the right time. You can miss the opportunity if you're focused on everything else around you. If you're complaining about everything else around you, you can miss that opportunity. And so, Peter, they were shouting, they were rejoicing. Peter's like, it says, but Peter kept knocking. Peter knew it was behind that door. He didn't want to move to the next door. He knew if he got in there, not only would he be covered, but everything that he needed behind that door would be there. So Peter's knocking, he gets in. Well, then further along, after they end up putting the soldiers to death, because of the fact is they didn't know where Peter was. They couldn't produce Peter. And, Peter had been delivered from the chains. The shackles had fell off as soon as he got up, and so the soldiers were killed. Well, further along, it talks about when it begins in chapter 13, Acts chapter 13 is where Paul comes into play. And it says that there's a man there by the name of Bar Jesus. He's a sorceress and a false prophet. And with that being said, understand even in life, whenever we're looking at opportunities, whenever we're, going towards something that God would have us to go to, a lot of things will look very similar to exactly what it is we're looking for. In other words, and I'm using even with common sense, just reading, just showing you, just to show you even the simplicity of it, right? The man's name was Bar Jesus. Now we call ourselves disciples of Jesus Christ, and because we see the enemy will take a truth and put a little lie in there so you can't tell the difference. So it's doing like this. Well, it looks the same, it looks like it goes together. And he'll take a little bit of truth and add a lie with that so that it's easier for you to believe it. And it's easier to deceive you. And so there was a man by the name of Bar Jesus. And with this man, he was trying, as they were trying to preach the gospel, he was saying different things because he was trying to deter them from believing what the gospel said. And Paul tells him, he says, why are you trying to pervert what God said? And I even looked up what the word pervert means. It means to take something and not use it for its original intent. And that, especially in the motivational world, is exactly that. If they have taken the name of God out of it, if they have taken even the name of Jesus out of it, then it's perverted. Yes, it will make your flesh feel good. Yes, it will make you feel good and you feel like you can conquer the world. But understand, yes, I want you to feel good. Don't get me wrong. But my main focus is your soul, to be honest, because your soul is what, the enemy and the soul is what the enemy and God are like basically your soul's in the middle. You get to choose which one you go towards. The enemy is fighting for your soul. He wants your soul, and so a lot of times, we say things and we want to make you feel good. We want you to feel good, of course. Who doesn't want to bring joy to somebody? You only want to be around people that bring you joy. And that's in everyday life. But the thing is, though, understanding that sometimes, especially when you want to bring a person joy, when sometimes it takes that tough love to say, look, this ain't right. Understand, just like with any way of thinking, with the thought process, it can be something that's very infected, and the rest of your body's good, right? The rest of the body's good, but all it takes is one infected toe or limb to basically infect the whole body that would kill off everything. And for example, in the physical, the medical field, right? If you have a toe, especially my diabetic patients, if you have a toe that is infected, after a while, first you'll start to see the infection on the outside. Then you'll start to see some swelling, like it's trying to give you signs like, look, this is infected. Then you'll see some swelling. You might see even some discharge, but then it becomes to where it starts to become necrotic. It starts to die. It starts to turn black. And that toe is infected. But unless you cut that toe off, unless you allow the doctor to cut that toe off, it will start sending cellulitis up the leg, where it starts infecting the rest of the leg. And then after a while, guess what happens? It gets into your bloodstream and you become septic and you can die. So a lot of times we see the symptoms, we see what's the effective things of what's going on, that it's a perverted version of it. And we don't realize, we're like, man, it's not, I'm applying this to my life. I'm saying my affirmations. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Why is this still going on the way it's still going on? And not saying things don't take time, because understand, you can aid that enough to where you can prolong the effects of it. I can give you Tylenol all day. It will make the fever disappear. Because understand, especially with infection, after a while of you keeping that infection, you will become febrile. You will become very, very hot, because the body's trying to fight it off. But sometimes the body isn't strong enough to fight it off. So they give you things to help aid those things, like antibiotics, things like that. But I can take something and kind of mask exactly what's going on in you. It's not that you're getting what you need to fight off the infection, but it masks it long enough to allow you to keep moving and keep going, so you don't even realize it's there. So I can give you Tylenol all day long. They'll take the pain away. It will take, the fever away. So you don't even realize that still my toe is infected. But after a while, it will only last so long. Then that infection will start to pop back up. It'll start to show. I'll start to have the feeling of the achiness. I'll start to have the feeling of the death on my toe. I'll start to still have those feelings. It won't take it away. But understand, sometimes you have to cut it off in order to save the foot. You have to cut it off in order to save the body. You have to cut it off. And with cutting it off, it doesn't feel good. It's very uncomfortable. And no, I'm sure the doctor doesn't really want to cut off your toe, but he has to in order to save you. The same thing, especially when the word of God is spoken in the motivational world. It's like, man, that don't feel good to me. And let me tell you why it doesn't feel good, because God is pricking at your heart. That's why you're like, man, I don't want to hear that junk. Bring something positive. Believe me, that is the good news, because I'm trying to save the whole body versus allowing an infected part to continue to cling on and to continue to be, continue to mask the pain and mask the trouble and mask exactly the primary problem. We can mask it all day long. And that's why I'm telling you, even in the motivational world, if they aren't telling you where their source is, even from the power that's inside of them, it's a mask. It's a mask. It's not the full truth. It's not. We can take something, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. Like I've told you before, motivation comes from the kingdom of God. Motivation comes from the Bible, but people have taken the name of God out of it. And they give you the part to motivate you, and take the name of God out of it and expect the same result. So that's like me giving you Tylenol, expecting the same result as an antibiotic. Yes, antibiotics will, after helping with the infection, your fever will go away and all the symptoms will go away because it's dealing with the problem. Tylenol will basically cover the signs and the symptoms of it, but it does nothing for your problem. It does nothing for your problem. And that's what I'm telling you. Yes, I want you to feel good, your flesh to feel good. Understand that I want you to feel good as a person so that you want to do great. But understand, I have to get to the primary problem. And the primary problem, to be honest, is the soul. A lot of times, even when we start to get depressed and anxiety, all of those things are dealt with emotions. Your emotions is housed in your soul. That's where the issue is, your soul. So I want you to be better, and I want to get to the primary issue of it. And like I said, if even all the motivators across the world, and that's for everybody, all the motivators across the world, if they're not saying the name of God, if they're not saying the fact that God is their source, is that they understand that the true and living God is their source, then it's perverted. It's a perverted form of exactly what you need. And we have to get to the point where we're like, you know what? It isn't about whether this feels good at this time, because to be honest, to be God on, like I like people to feel good. And I'm like, God, if you could just let me just say the good part and then send somebody else along that's really good at that part, that's really good of the surgery part, I would appreciate it. Like, I would seriously appreciate it. But I can't do that, because not only am I cheating myself, I'm being disrespectful to God because he told me to do something, and shame on me. That's my life. That's my life. If I'm disobedience is a sin of witchcraft. Understand that sin, you know what sin gets you? Death. For the wages of sin is death. I'm trying to live, and to live life and to have it more abundantly. And I want you to do the same thing. I wish, no, I don't wish that, because it's not God. Of course, a part of me feels like, okay, I just want to give you the positive and the good stuff that makes you always feel good. That would be great. That a part of me feels that way. But then understanding, you know what? You would just be masking exactly what the primary problem is. You would just be masking it all. And I don't want to do that. Like, I seriously have the love of Christ for you. I seriously have the love of Christ to where I want you to be better. And I want us to get to the primary problems of what our problem and our issue is. I want to get to the primary thing of that, so that we can have life and have it more abundantly. We're talking about the abundance. In order to have the abundance, there's some things that you have to deal with. God, like, for example, even though, my son he's 12 years old, a good kid, a very, very smart kid, has a lot of common sense, sometimes too smart for his own good. And, sometimes his mouth is a little sassy, but just very intelligent, and he's a good kid. And for a 12-year-old, he's very responsible. But I would not give him the keys to my car. It's not that I don't want him to have something good, but if I give him the keys to my car and he's not ready for it, he's going to end up not only killing himself, he could possibly hurt somebody else and then damage what I gave him. And then they'd be looking at me like, why would you give him something like that and he's not ready for that? It's the same thing how God feels about us. He wants us to have the life and have it more abundantly. But the thing is, we sitting around here with an immature, well, like my brother said last night, an immature soul. We sitting around here with an immature soul talking about, God, you told me I could have this. You said I was worthy of this. You said I was worthy of success. You said I was getting all these things, and you ain't gave it to me yet. And we all mad. We in our feelings. We are seriously in our feelings, wondering why he ain't opened up the door for us yet. When he's like, daughter, you just don't even know. Your soul is about 12 right now. Your soul is not mature right now. And I want to give it to you. I want to give you those great things. I want you to have those great things. I seriously do. But the thing is, I need you to grow up in some areas. The thing is, I need you to begin to allow even the process, understand we're not smarter than the process. None of us are smarter than the process. So even through that, just like my son has to go through the process of the years that it takes to grow up, to become mature enough to even drive a vehicle, to even be legally allowed to drive a vehicle. He can't go from, age 12 to age 20, or even age, let's just say 16, so he can drive. He can't skip those years. He has to go through the process. We have to go through the process, and not saying, because God is not in time, not saying he said it's going to take 4 or 5 years for you. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, though, you do have to go through the process of maturing. You do have to go through that process in order for you to get the abundance, in order for you to have that abundance. You have to go through that process. But don't allow a perverted version, because it sounds like it, because it sounds similar. Don't allow the perverted version of it to begin to pour into you. Because like I told you, perversion in, perversion out. You will begin to even speak that, not even realizing, look, you can't do this in yourself. And the reason that you're even here right now on here is because God has been pricking at your heart saying, listen, yes, that is my will for you. I want you to have all those great things. I want you to do this. I want you to have, be great in what it is you're doing, but don't leave me out. He's telling you, don't leave him out. He is a vital part of this. I can't live without my heart. I can't live without my brain. I can't live without my lungs. Those are what they call vital organs. We can't live without those things. We can't say, you know what, my lungs ain't doing good anymore. So you know what? Just because this coronavirus going around here, I'm gonna just take out my lungs and I'm gonna kind of hide my lungs off and I'm gonna just live until all of this passes over. Then I'm gonna put my lungs back. No, that's a vital organ. You have to have that in your body at all times to be living. It's the same thing with God. In order to have true life and have it more abundantly, you have to have him at all times. You have to be looking to please him at all times. And yes, sometimes, your vision might get a little gray where you're like, okay, this looked good, and I've had the same things where I believed, let's just say something that was very similar to what I thought it was. And then God had to correct me on it. And it was learned through trial and error. And that's how it is sometimes. You learn through trial and you learn through error. But the thing is, you dust off and you say, okay, that wasn't right. Father, help me to even move past this, realize not to beat myself up, not to get depressed, not to get discouraged, and realize what it is you're trying to show me. What is it in me that you're trying to show me? And we have to get like that. We have to. But with all that being said, even with all that being said, understand that we can no longer take a perverted version of what even motivation is and try to even give it to people. Because like I said, if you don't say who your source is, if you don't even acknowledge the fact of where your source is, and people don't know it, they like, for example, everyone knows on here, because I talk about God every single morning. There's no reason why they would not know that I am a true believer in Jesus Christ and a defender of the gospel and a disciple of the gospel. So because I talk about his name, there's other even brother kings and sister queens that I've seen on here say the name of God. And it's not just a one-time affair. It's not just something that they pick up and put down depending on who's around. We're in a season where you can't do that anymore, where you just mention the name of God depending on what your crowd is, depending on, your environment. I even understand, like, even with motivation, when you begin to, depending on what type of crowd you're speaking to, on what material you'd bring forth. Like if I'm speaking and trying to motivate a gym of young adults, I'm not going to come at them with stuff that only mature adults face, because it would make no sense to them. With that being said, God is not a part of that equation. That is all around the board. It's not that I can put him in one of my motivational speeches and not use him in the other. Like I have to always be a representation of Jesus Christ, because I understand where my source is. I can't leave my source behind, realizing, you know what? I'm not going to say the name of Jesus because it might offend someone that believes in something else. That believe, and the only reason I'm not going to name it, because I don't want to ostracize just one. I truly believe wholeheartedly that I serve the one and only true living God. Even the small g gods, my God is is the true and living God. So and the God that we serve, for those that are believers, is the one true living God. So with that being said, I can't put him in some of my speeches and take him out of others, because the fact is, you know what, God, I don't want to offend anyone. Like I said, if offense causes discomfort, causes pain, and just like a toe that might be infected, I can't say, well, I don't, a doctor can't say, well, I don't want to cut it off because I'm going to hurt you and risk infecting the whole body. He says, listen, this is going to be uncomfortable for a while. I'll give you things to even help with the discomfort, to help with the pain, antibiotics to even fight off the infection, but we're going to have to take it off. And, and he has to be the one to cut it off. And so a lot of times people don't want to be that person that says, look, this is infected. You need to see the doctor. You need to see the doctor. People don't want to be that person to say, look, it's infected. You need to go see a surgeon, and because it is uncomfortable, because it isn't always where the group is, it isn't always where you'll have a bunch of support. It isn't always where you have the circle even of the motivational world saying, you know what, that's so true, pat on the back. It's not always like that because sometimes it is offensive, so with that being said, we just have to make sure that we have the unadulterated version of it and realizing who our source is, realizing who God is, and saying, you know what? I'm no longer, even if you mention him even at the beginning, or even to, to say, this is my source, because it's not that every sentence that I say has the name of God in it, but people can see in my life. They can see in my life, and not only in my life, but in my conversation, that I am a defender of the gospel, that I am a disciple of Jesus Christ, that I'm a child of the King. They can't see it. And is like I said, it's not that in every sentence, because I do, the 1 minute deep breath, I don't know if I say God in each time I do that, but people know even from my conversation from these that, definitely I'm a disciple of Christ. So it's not about saying God every 5 words, but it's a fact that, do you realize who your source is? Do you realize who even teaches you, allows you to learn these things? Do you realize who has given you the power? Do you realize even, and are you afraid to proclaim the name? Because he says, if you're basically, the easiest way I could put this, like basically, if you're embarrassed to say the name of God in front of people, then he'll be embarrassed to even mention you in front of his Father. So like with that be, he said, if you be ashamed of me, then I'm going to be ashamed of you in front of my Father. So I can't have God being like, I don't know you. I'm ashamed of you. Like, I don't know you. Depart from. I can't do that. Like the life that I'm doing down here is definitely to build up the life up there, in heaven. And so I can't even allow even the fact that, you know what, Shameka, you were ashamed to say the name of God because you were worried about what people might think. You were worried about what they might say. I can't let that happen, and because even Toastmasters will tell you, oh no, she's a church girl. Toastmasters will even tell you that, because I've mentioned the name of God several times, not in every speech. Like my last speech, I believe, was talking about the 4 different types of communication. And so with that being said, in that speech, I don't believe that I talked about God in that speech, but they know that I will not even, bow down to anything but God, that I will not even try to even replicate anything but God. They know that, and they will tell you that, because I've mentioned it a few times, and I'm very adamant about it. I'm very strong-minded about it. That's one thing people will not change my mind of, is who God is, and and what he's done for me, and how he set me free, and how he loosed me from my chains and my shackles in my mind. That's something I know without a shadow of a doubt, more than I know I'm gonna get my next breath. I know that for real. So we have to understand, we have to start, especially with the way the world is and how things are going, to give the unadulterated word of God, to give the unadulterated form of motivation, to give the unadulterated truth. And that's the fact that we know who our source is. So with that being said, I hope, whoever even listens to the replay, even my live players, whoever might be on, that is something that pricked your heart, and maybe even something that you're thinking about. You might be mad, or bothered about it right now, or like, you know what, she needs to, she's going to really lose some followers. Believe me, if I have if I have the signing of Jesus, I'm okay with that, because it's about proclaiming the name of God. And that definitely, I will tell anyone, the only reason why I do this and even subject myself to being judged is because I want to please my Father. I want to please my Father in heaven. I want to please him. I want him to say, well done, that good and faithful servant. I want him to be happy with me. I want to do his will. That's the only reason why I even subject myself to being judged, to being ridiculed, even to be looked at differently, because I want him to be pleased with me. So that's why I do it. But I hope it's something that has pricked your heart, and that has also, even give you something, even if you don't think about it right now, to think about later, that, maybe this is right. Maybe this is something I need to research, and you don't even have to ask me. You can just read the word of God. Just seek him and he'll tell you straight from his mouth, to your ears. He'll give you even, and I won't say feeling, because feeling goes back to emotion, but he'll put something inside of you that you do feel, that you're like, God, I know you're telling me to do this. I know that you said for me to do this. I know that you're speaking to my spirit for me to do this. So with that being said, continue just to do the work, because understand, we're the only one that limit ourselves to what we can talk about, to what we will talk about. We're the only one that limit ourselves. And the first thing you have to do is change your mind so you can change your life, and then change the way that you think so your life will forever change. But you are your only limitation. I want you guys to know that I love you, and I hope that your day's amazing. Hey, Queen, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you in the beginning. I thought those were one of the ones that I had up before. I hope and pray that you're still on here. But I do appreciate you for joining even the live. And just remember, guys, just continue to do what's great. I do later on this afternoon, we'll have my 1 minute deep breath, because of everything that's going on, just to encourage you, just to motivate you, to be great. If you can share, if this is something that definitely pricked your heart, definitely share this live, on whatever page or group that you might have. And just allow God to be great in your life, allow him to be great in your life. But with that being said, I truly, truly love you guys, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Bye.